Thomas, I think what we're watching is a blitzkrieg, unlike any that we've ever seen in modern warfare history. But this is definitely war, and we have hit them really hard. The Democrats are, and really anyone that's been on the government payroll for this long through all of these NGOs and USAID and Department of Net Assessment, and we go on and on and on, they are all just running like chickens with their heads cut off in Washington, demanding to get into federal buildings. Like, what are you going to do? No, their gig is up. They've been uncovered just like a bunch of cockroaches. They're just scurrying everywhere.
It's like a multiple warhead reentry vehicle, nuclear missile. And as we saw USAID get blown up, that's just one, folks. As Michael McKibben just gave us an article on look what happens if they do an assessment of the Pentagon's budget. If they do a true analysis, they'll find that the Office of Net Assessment in the Navy is where most patent thefts that are turned into weapons are stolen from. And then it'll be endless, because once you go to the patent office, as we demonstrated in our last talk, you're talking trillions of dollars of theft that is then turned into fake companies that have basically a monopoly with the government through their weaponization of it. Remember that Google is a weapon. It was created as a weapon. The internet's a weapon. Your telephone's a weapon. Every single all these digital things you have that we use initially were all weapons. For instance, the internet was called the ARPANET, created by DARPA to build weapons between universities. So they go after USAID. So as we pointed out with Michael McKibben, the USAID, you must be kidding. Inside of that are three other organizations that are as big or bigger. As a matter of fact, the term for each of those loans that are guaranteed by America are for 10 years usually. And there's absolutely no one keeping track of it. Once one of those deals is done, it goes on for 10 years and they keep getting paid. And whoever it is, and this is written right into the way that they've been doing this for many, many years, whoever it is that comes up with the idea to create this request to USAID or the USCD or its sub-agencies, they get a piece of the pie. It says right there. They're one of the administrators. And then the fiduciary gets a piece of the pie. That's the bank or some shill company, which usually is a shill company of the person who suggested doing this for Siberia. We're going to do some DEI in Siberia. Think of the person who came up with that. Okay? This is how insane it is. Every single person who ever heard of this did two things in D.C., if they were in D.C., the District of Crime. Got on board that train, set up their own little fund, and never spoke about it to anyone but other insiders. I want to ask all of you a simple question. If this much waste is going on, and as we say, you've only seen the tip of the iceberg, they say they get $50 billion a year at USAID. That is completely nonsense. They can move money around in ways you can't imagine from all these different agencies I've talked about. So it's not $330 billion that was thrown away into these laundromats for DC politicians. No. It's much, much more than that. It's trillions of dollars. Because they're not counting the things that have already happened right here in front of all of our eyes. Zelensky was told, so as soon as that, the $177 billion that Trump has said we have given him outright through Congress. That doesn't count the $27 billion through the IMF or a bunch of other money that I've thrown in there to come up with actually $200 billion we've given them. But anyway, he says, I've only received $75 billion of the $177 billion you said you gave us. And Trump is saying, what? Okay, audit them. Oh, now you're talking. Anytime you have the Pentagon involved, let's remember that in public, we have seen audits of the Pentagon. The one that was most recent was about 3-4 years ago. They were missing $2.2 $4.5 trillion. And the audit before that, $4.5 trillion. There's $7 trillion. The Pentagon, now mind you, listen to what I'm saying. They spent the money. That's a fact. But they don't know where it went, and they don't have any record of it. And if they say they spent that much, then they probably spent more. Well, they know that they lost about $3 trillion to Lockheed Martin. Okay? And I can go down where they've lost this, cutting corners, and fighter planes not delivered, bombers not delivered, on and on and on. So I can't wait till they go to the Pentagon. It won't even take an 18-year-old to do that one, and you can use ChatGPT.
No, not ChatGPT. You need to stay out of that technology realm, right? But it's very concerning because they're using AI. That's what they claim, to go into U.S. aid and find out where all these improprieties are. And that's all well and good. But in doing that, they're having to scrape the information that is inside the U.S. government and our computers. And where is that scraped information going? I don't like it that Elon Musk has such a conflict of interest here. All well and good that he's doing it, but I can also see in my mind, I got Elon all figured out that he and his daddy Errol and his South African emerald mind, they're really propping up Elon to become the dictator, king, ruler, whatever you want to call it, of the North American technate. And I'm not going to let that go. He's right there. He's Trump's best buddy. And he's doing all this. So on the one hand, you go, this is great. But then I have to be very cautious that we're just not getting played. Have these two guys up there that we think are doing all well. They're helping the people. We're going to get our money back. And then they slam it down. And all of a sudden, we're controlled by two oligarchs, Trump and Elon Musk. That concerns me.
Okay, when they say an AI, okay, let me give you a simple example. You go to Wikipedia, you ask a question, and just what we told you before, Dragonfly, when it got applied here to Google also, will give you the only answer. Later on, folks, you're not going to get anything below those answers you get now. But you got to ask a question. So when the U.S. Digital Service was created by Eric Schmidt for Obama, and they had it somewhere, either in the White House or in the Vice President's house, and it went to Obama's Washington site, where Valerie Jarrett still works every day, and the Chicago Mafia still has a copy of everything, including all the Treasury. Plus, they have Hillary's public key infrastructure, crypto keys. Everything in the government has already been breached. We know that. The Office of Personnel Management was breached 100%. The Office of OMB was breached. Everything was breached. The Pentagon was breached. All that information is already out there. Now, what do they do with it? Same exact thing. They create a large language model. So they go in and they say, okay, you think you've created a silo for the Treasury, okay? Well, we're going to grab that, make that the large language model, and then after we do that, the AI, the mystical AI, which I call ChatGPT, is going to do what? Be able to answer any question. So literally, once they download it, this doesn't take a genius now. They ask a question. Please show us anything that indicates fraud. Bingo. They don't have to do all the work that we used to do. This is metadata analysis now. You ask a question, because when they're saying AI, what they mean is there's a central processing unit that is able to communicate to a whole bunch of other ones, as well as all their applications, and then ask a question, and then they go out and grab the application and grab the place where the memory is stored, and bingo, bango. Remember, the Treasury is not a SCIF. The Treasury, in the basement of the Treasury, they manipulate the stock market anytime they want. The plunge protection team.
Well, what do you mean it's not a SCIF? What does that mean?
It isn't secure information. And the Treasury used to be the clearinghouse for every single check written in my day, back in 1972 when the first computers came online. all the checks had to be cleared through the U.S. Treasury, what they call the basement of the U.S. Treasury, right? That's still going on. The Treasury manipulates the stock market like crazy. Now, the other thing, when we go to do an audit, let's audit the Fed. We don't owe them all that money. Now, if I started telling you how much we paid them a year for the number of staff they have, you'd go, that's not even humanly possible. Those people all need to be fired for fraud. Remember, it was only, I forget, about 6-8 years ago, they when China and Russia wanted to sell all their bonds, the Fed bonds, U.S. Treasury bonds, and they warned us and they said they're going to crack our currency. They're going to break us down. They're going to take over America. So they put $4.5 trillion worth of bonds on the market. 1 second later, they were bought. So they did an investigation, and the head of the Fed came and said, well, we don't know who bought that, and we have no idea how that happened because those are off-book accounting. $4.5 trillion in one deal, or two deals actually rolled into one, off-books transactions. So the Fed has a double booking system. All the central banks are that way. The stock market's the same way. The stock market's ran by Brits. So Trump has pulled not the plug on the swamp, he's pulled the plug on each of these silos so that they're being pulled into many silos and ripped apart. That's the reason Mitch McConnell's tripping over stuff, and all these Democrat leaders are just doing completely stupid things, going out yelling and screaming at buildings. They think yelling at the U.S.
Department of Education. That's the last place they were at.
And before that, USAID. Yelling at the building. Okay? Now let's remember, there's no democracy in America. And I would say that in my research, a good, 20% of these organizations funded by OPIC or USAID or OECD or DFA or DCA or any of these things, right? They almost always have the word democracy in them. Democracy in other countries, that we have our CIA there stirring it all up so that then we can give some aid to them, which never gets to them. And all that really did was pay for the CIA going in to cause chaos. And that disrupts and then U.S. corporations or global corporations go in and fleece every country on the face of the earth. That's what that was all about. It was never aid. It was never foreign aid. And it was if we go into the details of these things, it's ridiculous, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Wait till they go to the IRS. Wait till they say, well, let's try to tackle offshore accounts.
I want to say something about the IRS. IRS has a big problem, and they're hiding it. And this is a story from a cat. So there was a man. He's been employed by the same company for 20, 30 years, only worked this one job, and he goes to the Social Security office to apply for Social Security. He's going to retire. And they tell him he has no money in his account. Why? Well, upon further investigation by the IRS, they find out that the company did not pay into Social Security, but they claimed that they did on the company tax return. But the money was never sent in to Social Security. And the IRS has no way to go and check it. Actually, the IRS and Social Security Administration never thought about cross-checking each other because they exist in these silos. So that man, after 30 years of work, has no Social Security, and they're not going to go after the owner of the company because he's 80 years old. Then it came to my attention that the IRS actually knows about this case. But they also found out it doesn't just apply to that man and that company. It's across the board. We're talking about billions of dollars that the IRS didn't check on and was never paid into Social Security and could affect your Social Security. This is a mess.
And that's true with every element of the federal government. And every state government that anybody stays in there long enough, they do the same thing. They see where the money flows, and then they go and they put their own personal tax on it. Now, I want to address something else. I want to address this Gaza Strip thing, okay? Trump said, no, none of our troops, and no American tax dollars. That's because, as I have said all along, everyone knew this. This was known 10 years ago or more. It was known when Hamas came into existence, because everybody knew at that time that the money was being donated by Israel, because Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization had no longer gave out food and water to people, and they were starving. I mean, there's not much going on in that little strip. So they created Hamas, and Hamas got every Palestinian to love them because they gave out tons of food and hospitals and education and water and all this stuff. Okay, that's all Israeli money. But the deal was, we do this for you, but Hamas, you have to act like you're fighting us. Okay, so Hamas is Israel. And anyone who doesn't know this hasn't looked into history. I'm sorry. Now, what happens now? So Bibi wanted to completely knock it all down. Why? So he could build the resorts there. In a matter of a couple of years, it would pay back for everything that was invested and much, much, much more. Just like he stole Golden Heights for Genie Oil, he's stealing the Gaza Strip for Noble Oil and the Leviathan. Leviathan is the largest drilling ship in the world, and the Mediterranean basin right off the shore of Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, Israel, Syria, and Cyprus gets a little bit of it. They've been fighting over this for years. It's one of the largest reserves there is, and the Israelis already have platforms that are pulling it up. They tried to take it through Cyprus. They wouldn't let them. They need to bring it back ashore, and then they will be a terribly rich oil nation. So Trump is simply going to buy a 1 mile strip, 5 mile by 1 mile. He's going to have a friend put in a dock so that the Leviathan can dock there. And so they've already done this. They've already tried this. They already know it will work. But the Palestinians kept not allowing them to come across their property there. So that's what's happening. Trump will get that. It'll be beautiful. And he says it's for everyone. The Palestinians can come back there. What does Bibi want? Remember, Bibi still has 3 major cases he has yet to be that he's been indicted on that he hasn't yet dealt with, and they're about oil manipulation deals in the Golden Heights with Genie and his continuous war with all the nations that should be getting this oil. So again, what does Trump do? He just pulls the plug and he goes in and does his own deal. Now, let's go back to what you were talking about. Elon Musk is a complete nutcase. He's a fraud. Do you think Trump doesn't know that? If he's talked at any length with Elon Musk, or if any of you out there have listened to Elon Musk in a long conversation with anyone, you would know he's not intelligent.
Oh, but he's on the spectrum.
Oh, well, autistic children, when they're nonverbal on the spectrum, might be an idiot savant, but he's no savant. He's an idiot. Now, the people that he's using, the story is very simple. 2 of those people already had their clearance to work at the Treasury. They worked at the Treasury. The 2 people he went in and used, and then the 2 he brought with him had already been cleared ahead of time. And remember, they've dropped the clearance mechanism they used to use to hinder Trump from getting people in place. The story out there now is that he had 1,000 people cleared ahead of time, which is possible to do. You can have a private agency do it if the government accepts it. So he could have had 1,000 people set up. We don't know. But he had some people set up. So these 4 young men, 2 of them in the Treasury, they're not doing any miracle. You take a large language model, in other words, that database they're working with, throw it in there, wait a little while, and ask it any questions you want. It'll spit out the answers. Now, do those gentlemen know anything more than what they found from the Treasury? Well, everything leads back to money. Oh, no. No. We go massively in debt on our budget each year, and it's a fake. What they tell you, that the deficit of the U.S. budget, the U.S. federal government budget is. That's a complete lie. It's kind of like people say, oh, no, the Fed, we don't pay the Fed. Yeah, we do. We pay them billions of dollars. We pay them whatever they demand. And they only have a few people working there. The people get paid working there hundreds of millions of dollars for working there. So don't tell me we don't pay the Fed and they just give us a bill. Now, there was one time they put in a $5 billion bill and they only got $1 billion. Oh, sad Fed. But anyway, Trump, when he starts to audit the central banks, he's going to say, who said you could have New York Stock Exchange stock in your assets, in your portfolio? I'm not sure that's legal. It's only legal in that there wasn't a law forbidding it, but if anyone ever looked at it, it would be forbidden. It's much like what has happened in our libtard age here.
And our banks.
If somebody doesn't look, it's like if you don't know George Soros doesn't pay taxes, you're an idiot. He brags about it. He gave $18 million in 2017 to 84 different NGOs that were the clearest form of election manipulation and interference that I've ever seen in my life. And so if you don't know he's a bad guy, and if there's a program you can turn him in and you get a reward for it, how come no one at the IRS has ever turned in George Soros? You wouldn't have Karachi. You want me to tell you where his money is? He brags about it. And now Alex Soros is seen with every Democrat in a big, happy, smiling hug. In other words, he's giving money to their offshore account. Offshore accounts don't pay taxes. As far as I'm concerned, every person who is doing that and taking money out of the country that should have paid taxes on it, like every criminal, should go to jail for IRS evasion. And hello, I can turn them all in. And guess what? I'm just going to say this. They're all guilty. Prove me wrong. Look at Pelosi. Look at NVIDIA. Okay? So if Trump, he doesn't have 5,000 lawyers is what it would take right now. So he's draining the different silos and hoping and giving them an out so that they can jump ship.
Well, we have been into schools and businesses before that we've had to take over. And the first place we go is to the budget and to the finances. That's where it all happens. And if you want to close down an operation, you just restrict the money flow and you see who screams and where you hear the screaming. And it's right now coming from, and it's not just the Democrats. There are Republicans in there like Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham who've been sucking off this teat for a long time. And I'm fed up with it. And so is everybody out here. But the thing is I don't want it to be a half-assed job. I don't want us just to go in there and slap one agency. I want to go through every agency. Now that we know fraud is there, we have an obligation as citizens to demand that every department in our government is audited. And through that, it's got to pass on to the states. So if any federal money is going to the states, those programs also need to be audited. I am thrilled that the Department of Education is being closed. When I was in high school, the debate question that year that we all debated, everybody who's on the debate team, you get a question for the year, and it was about vouchers. But from there, I was like, why don't we run our education through the voucher system and let parents decide what's best for their children? Oh, no, you can't do that because then we can't indoctrinate them in this Marxist communist philosophy that we've now seen fully bloom into our society. It's just too much. But I see a lot of winning, and I am so happy for the winning. I want to be positive. I want to believe that Trump is going to take us all the way. So I'm not going to be a naysayer or a poo-pooer. I'm just saying that I'm keeping an eye on things from this end, being very careful to make sure that we do win, and this isn't another what do I want to say? False flag. We'll take one agency down, but we're not taking everything down.
It seems like in my lifetime, anyone who went into the White House went in and came out extremely rich. And why did they become rich? Look at Daddy Bush. He went to Halliburton, and Halliburton has its own mercenary group. And he sold 2 dead gold mines to friends, Barrick Gold, which then started producing more gold than anywhere. There was no gold there. That was paper gold. So look at Trump. We talk about winning. What do I call him? Gruesome, Gavin Gruesome Gruescum out there in California is being Newscum is being recalled again. Now, I don't remember any politician in history that's been recalled twice. So this time, he's not going to be able to convince them with the fake vote. And as Trump keeps saying, when you have voter ID and when you have paper ballots, come talk to me and we'll talk about some federal aid for the disaster that you created. And so what's he doing there? He is leveraging the situation again. He could go after him for fraud. No, too much time. It'll be wrapped up in the courts. Just drain the money. Just manipulate the hell out of him. So what's he doing now? I didn't know this. This is great. He basically is saying, I am doing an investigation. He is doing an investigation through the Department of Justice, of course, on the railroad plan that was the big scam that everyone knew was a scam that just happened to pass through those cities in California that were hit by directed energy weapons and burnt completely up, but the trees next to the houses weren't, right? Now, did you know that railroad is now going to Las Vegas? It isn't going to San Francisco. From LA to Las Vegas. That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. Because that is just stupid. Anybody could build that because there's nothing there. It's a desert all the way. And so what he did is he went from having, the super train, which he got billions and billions and billions of dollars for, to a choo-choo train going to Las Vegas. This is who Gavin Newsom is. So anyway, there's so much winning going on we can't go over, but let's talk about the winning in Ukraine. I predicted everybody that the reason that Trump has not talked to Putin is because he already talked to Putin on the phone. And he said, okay, let's divide the pie. Now, what do you hear? You hear all this big debate about what's going on where it was leaked. Oh, that's the big leak, is that somebody leaked what Putin and Trump are talking about is going to happen in Ukraine, how they divide it up. And guess what? Zelensky's not part of the conversation. Matter of fact, they say Zelensky will be dead any minute. Now, they're going to make it look like it's part of the war thing, but it's because he admitted in international television that America took half the money they said they gave him. Well, who took it? Therefore, there will be an investigation because we now have his word that it was stolen. It didn't get to him. So, hello, that's all the same people. It's the usual suspects. It's Pelosi. It's Romney. It's the Bidens. It's every member of the Biden family. It's everyone in Congress that's been there for more than 2 terms, or the Senate, that has an offshore account. And they were, remember, USAID paid for International Republican Institute to take celebrity trips to shake Zelensky's hand in Kiev. Okay? We paid for that. And did you notice how many Democrats went there to shake Zelensky's hand? They got paid to do so, folks. And we, the people, paid for them to do it. And it was completely fake. If you notice, it was a green screen. They didn't go there. So this kind of fraud, you see, fraud vitiates everything. So if Trump doesn't have to indict anybody, he just has to say this is fraud to their face. Here's the evidence. What are you going to do about it? Oh, you're going to leave? Well, don't ever come back, and don't step on federal land again, and don't ever step in another federal building again, and let them go on their way. For instance, the new Attorney General has just informed all sanctuary cities that they will be prosecuted to the full measure of the law if they continue to be sanctuary cities. That should have been done on day one. Trump tried that. He actually tried it in his first administration. He tried stopping certain federal aid, and some judge jumped in and said he couldn't do it, and then he met the force of the shadow government, the senior executive service. He's pulled the plug on them. He's pulled the plug on so many of the central core people. Why? Because if you don't get them away from the controls, he'll never be able to do anything. But he did circumvent a lot of the controls because he got new ways to get security clearances for his people. He downgraded the National Security Council till it doesn't matter who's on it or who says anything. He doesn't care. He doesn't need them. He's got his own Privy Council, the Principals Committee, it's called, and that's what he's focusing on. So he doesn't have to trust anybody. He can simply say, "Get me the information. Let me look at it." And so they went to the Treasury, they got him the information, and he says, "Close it down." He would have to say close it down because he's the executive. All federal agencies, they say there's only 56, and there's only, 14 cabinet positions or 16. There shouldn't be any agency that doesn't come to a cabinet position because that's the way the law reads. You know how many agencies there are? I thought there were over 400 once I started researching. No, there's thousands. Some of them are defunct, but they're still being paid. Agencies that no one comes to the office, but the people who work there are still being paid. And so when you look at, but any big bureaucracy, when you look at it, that's what you're going to find. I used to be, as Tyler, Betsy just pointed out, that we were educational forensic people. So we would go in for the state to see if people were stealing from the children in schools. And they always were. And it was so easy to catch. It was ridiculous. You just look at the budget. And so if you're looking at the money and the flow of money, all you have to do is say, AI, who is this company? And then if you are on U.S. Digital Service, you can follow it back to who in the government actually has their name on that company.
And when are they going to find the rat lines, the financial lines for all the pedophilia, the human trafficking, and all of that? Are those going to be intermixed with the U.S. aid?
He said he's releasing Epstein's list.
Yeah, I'm talking about the funding too. It seems to me that you could find this out. Let's say a organization set up and was receiving U.S. aid funding. Well, that might not be their only revenue source. Maybe they're getting revenue from human trafficking off to the side. I mean, can you go in and look at every single stinking agency that ever accepted money and look at their financials?
Yes, you can. And now you can do it very quickly with these subroutines. Mm-hmm. And notice Trump got out of the UN group that, I forget their name, the UNKFGRAAB or whatever, who he called terrorists. You get out of UNESCO because they're giving out Bill Gates sterilization shots. You get out of the blue hats because they end up raping more people than they end up defending when the United Nations peacekeeping forces go. They're the worst army in the world. And now the World Trade Organization, I predict that will fall any day now. Trump got out of the World Health Organization. He said he wants to create his own. I love that. And then recently he got out of the human rights section of the UN. This is huge, people, because we pay to be in all those, and we're the only ones paying the big bucks. So he got out of that, and any minute he's going to get out of the Security Council. And as soon as he does that, there'll be no reason to have the UN in America, and we'll get out, and it will falter just like all these agencies that are being, slush funded the U.S. aid, and all the libtards are all freaking out. Why? Because it was free money for doing nothing except resistance. Most of that money was resistance. And when I pointed out
election interference.
That's what I call resistance, yeah. And then what I pointed out years ago when I studied this, and it was very hard to get the information, was...
And I'm taking the microphone away from you because all of these things, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, all of them, they all need to lose their broadcasting license because of what they did during the elections. And not just the ones recently, but let's go all the way back to 2016. And let's take all the times that all of us out here were censored in our comments or even posting videos. They all need to lose their license.
Yes, the Commerce Act is not going to protect mainstream media or social media anymore. Period. Done. That's why you hear from the Trump camp and Elon's camp that they are for free speech. Well, they're not. But at this point, Trump is doing his Trump thing. Melania got $500 million, or no, he got $500 million. He settled, so they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits. That's what's going to drain these companies, and he can kill them by taking their money away. And what I love to see is these people who lied to your face, and they knew they were lying on mainstream media. they're fired. And no one's going to want to hire them because all you are is a professional liar. Oh, that's right. You could go to Hollywood where the rest of the professional liars are.
Hollywood's all been burnt down.
Oh, Hollywood's burnt down. That's a good thing. Now, so there's so much good things going on. I can't even begin to tell you what's going to happen with Ukraine is going to be a good thing. And it's going to get Russia right back in, and the 4 pipelines when they're going, and they'll restore Nord Stream 1 and 2, and the European Union will fold, and Britain, it had, half its gold from the Bank of England taken away from them, and so now they can't do any deals because they don't have anything to back it up, and now everyone knows it. So Trump basically pulled their shorts down. It's just, I can't keep up. I need to have a running list every day of the winning that this man is coming to. And every time you think, oh, he's run into something, like he gave him a deadline for when they could either take the buyout or not, and then the judge jumped in.
A district judge.
All that means is it extended it for a few more days so more people will take the buyout. Because these people are so stupid. Do they not know in the corporate world what a buyout means? It means the company is dying. You're going to lose your job later. You take the buyout now, you get something. You stay with the company, you die because the company dies. Now, Trump cannot close the FBI, the CIA, or any of those agencies. But he can gut them, and he can take away their money, and he can put people, if they stay and they do bad, now he will get the 5,000 lawyers who will go after them for fraud. So it is just, I can't even begin to tell you, even with Fauci and with the preemptive pardons, those are all nonsense already. It's already been demonstrated and proven. So now all that did was create a path to their door. Now the FBI does not have to say someone told them to go after Fauci. They can because there was the preemptive pardon. I love that. Every time the Dems do something, it backfires on them, and it makes them look like idiots. Oh, that's right. They were idiots. Maxine Waters yelling, is there a bigger idiot in America? Yeah, that would be maybe Pelosi, but she's a wicked idiot. So what we're seeing now is the age of stupidity has gone. And as long as Trump stays safe and the programs he's putting into place are followed through on, because remember the first administration, they wouldn't let him follow through. And then later they abdicated, they nullified everything he did. No, we have to have, say, 2 to 3 terms of what is happening right now. And America will be a different place. We won't pay taxes. Well, he's already said he didn't even want it. The IRS doesn't need it. He's got the external revenue service. And repatriating money from offshore accounts would give us enough money for 10 years. Folks, we wouldn't have to pay anything in taxes for 10 years. So we're winning, Betsy.